Welcome to the Kimeramon DM trait gameplay guide. Today we got our friend Timmy piloting this deck. We've been working on it together and we're going to be commentating over and checking it out and how he plays it overall so you guys can learn together as well. First matchup facing against Kimeramon, which is also a assembly focused deck, where both of these decks kind of scale really strongly in the late game as soon as they can get their sources in the trash. So of course, very similarly to Kimeramon, which you guys are most familiar with, Kimeramon, you're trying to add as many sources as you can in your trash, but not level 5 cyborg specifically. You're trying to add level 4 DM trait cards so that you can actually then assembly for 7 different names, which is quite a lot to play it for 3 costs. But once you bring it out, you can gain a ton of toolbox of inherited effects, and you have a rush attacker with 2 checks with massive DP and massive removal all at the same time. So in the early game stages, you want to be able to use your rookies and train as much as you can and try to stack the level 4s face down underneath your sources as much as you can. That way your first game plan initially is to go into skullgreymon. Once you get into it, you get to mill the top cards of your deck for every face down source it has. The more you can mill, the faster you can add your level 4s in there, and that is exactly what Timmy is trying to do at the moment. You want to chip away at your opponent's security with it and attack as much as possible. Thanks to his on deletion effect that floats things back is really nice. Now he's trying to utilize the older analog youth from EX9 to mill more cards potentially and send the trash with additional level 4s, but oh man goodness, that is a painful search for sure, because you don't want to see those option cards. You'd rather have them in your hand so I can utilize it instead, and you really want to toss away level 4s to help you ramp up the counts as quickly as possible. But now he's established Analog Man so that he can start his turn at 3 memory, which is rather important for Kimeramon because you want to be able to play it and still keep your turn so I can make that attack. But the Kimeramon side is they're ramping up pretty quickly as well, because all they need is 4 different names and they're ready to go. And since they're playing the purple engine, they can get there relatively quickly by drawing and trashing cards. And now they already established their early Kimeramon, they can do a ton of things and exert an amount of pressure, which can be tricky for Kimeramon to deal with just because they can't simply just delete it outright because it has protection. The best way to play around this actually would be the Monochromon, which can de-digivolve when you play it out or when you attack with it to get rid of stacks, or you can use Garurumon to remove certain sources to help make it a little bit easier to deal with the Kimeramon. Even though Kimeramon out there seems invincible, it's not a stack that is entirely impossible to deal with. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to get rid of Kimeramon, you just need to play around the tools that it has, because it does have a lot of toolboxing as well. So we are getting close to having 7 different names at this point, but the opponent's board is also very nicely set up. They got like 2 analog mans, supreme connection, 2 analog use. If there's ever going to be deleted under stack, they can recover and sort of like gain additional memory, limit the plays, you know, with the redirections. You're going to go for the attack, which then fulfills probably the 7 different names here at this point, and Chimera would be getting closer and closer to happening, which is going to be dropping out right now by gathering 7 different name sources. The nice thing of the skullgreymon is that it can also be counted as a level 4 when you're trying to go for the assembly. Just make sure they all have different names that with the DM trait. Use Analog Man to tuck a face down source because you want to make sure to have that so that Analog Youth will give your Kimeramon reboot, and once you stack a blocker underneath, you have Piercing, it has a variety of other effects, it has Raid as well, Retail, which is kind of nice. So you can go ahead and go over 2 checks here into the Kimeramon, attempting to delete it first as well, which is going to force them to trash the bottom 2 sources. And of course they're going to let through, and they're going to chip away with the Palmon here, checking into Attack of Heavy Mobile Digimon with a security effect, which will delete something. And this could be a tricky one, because if they have something that's a level 6 on their hand, they would be able to delete the Chimera, but it looks like they don't, so they go for the Palmon instead. Or they may have like selectively chose not to deal with that Kimeramon, because once it's deleted, Timmy gets all the level 4 sources back in the trash all over again to assemble for the next turn to make the same plays all over again. And the later the game goes, the more different colors you can rack up for level 4s, Kimeramon will start being able to delete multiple colors. And this could be rather effective if they ever go into Chaosdramon or Chaosdramon X, because it's 2 colors so that it can pop a red and a black back to back, and then they're forcing the Kimeramon player to trash a ton of different sources. But they're also sitting in a very good position right now. They have a lot of memory. The Kimeramon is still on the board right here. They're down to 0 security, but if they're able to somehow like unsuspend and do security attack +1 checks, it can be over for Chimera. And also being able to de-digivolve with some of the effects such as the Cyberdramon Ace there can also help play around a little bit to prevent the Analog Youth from being used on Timmy's side. So they are going to attack. They're going to go for Cyberdra Ace, playing out another Analog Man, and then now being able to restack the cards back to the top or bottom of the deck in however order that they want to choose to do so. And if a block happens here, they're going to gain quite a bit of memory as well. Now, first, they're going to de-digivolve the Kimeramon, but this is where it's going to get interesting. If the Kunemon blocks, which it does have thanks to Monochromon, it does have Retail, and Skullgrey can float a body back. And this could be pretty good on the Chimera side to actually get rid of this Machinedramon stack right here. So it looks like he does go for the block, and then because Retaliation and the Skullgreymon on deletion inherit effect both trigger at the same time, so that Timmy is able to choose which one he wants to resolve first. So he's going to go for Monochromon, being able to play it off the Skullgreymon, tuck something underneath to de-digivolve, and then Retail is going to happen, which will trade and get rid of stack and Ace Overflow, taking a bit of memory back. But since a level 5 resource was deleted, Analog Youth does gain additional memory back as well. So the Machinedramon player will have to reset up all over again, which honestly isn't a problem for the opponent because they can easily get into another one all over, which you guys can see. Although it doesn't have the rush attacks to finish the game off in this moment, they have 0 security, so they have to find a way to defend against Timmy at this moment. Otherwise, he'll finish it off in the following turn. So they're going to go assemble with 4 different name sources once again, use Analog Man to gain additional memory and tuck sources and draw more cards. And then now they get to tuck an additional source at the very top to utilize its on-play effect, probably just to get rid of this Monochromon, which can be tricky. With Timmy being able to still have sources of meat and protein next turn, he could possibly climb all the way up and also make additional attacks, but we can see he has a Chimera to work with. So they end up going with Metal Mame to strip away the source and bomb deck the Monochromon, which is definitely key in this matchup because you guys can see how good that card really was and the opponent wants to get rid of it too. So now he's going to start off and just go ahead and assemble with Chimera. He still has 7 different names in total that he can easily achieve all together, so that he can possibly try to get different colors in total, because I can see that he can also tuck in a Airdra, and then now he's missing a green color to finish it off, and that will actually delete the entire board, or at least attempt to delete the entire board, getting rid of the Uko alongside and pretty much getting rid of 2 bomb sources off the Machinedramon right there. And now he can try to attack, but there is 1 redirect and 1 blocker that can happen as well, so he needs to see how he wants to do this. He could have tried to attack and then see what the Machinedramon player is going to do. So it looks like they're going to go for the block and protect itself, because Machinedramon's protection effect is not even just once per turn. As long as they're able to continue to trash sources all turns non-stop, that is just absolutely insane. I feel like if there was a way to actually use the Garurumon to strip away the blocker source to force them to use Analog Man to redirect instead, but either way I feel like the attack here is still not going to go through. But that way Timmy still has to play around 1 more Analog Man at this particular moment, and with the resources that he has left on his hand, Kimeramon does cycle through the deck fairly quickly, but one of the problems is that you're not able to sustain and keep a lot of cards in your hand as well. So he decides to hard drop the Angemon, which passes them back to 3, gives something security -1 and -3k, just to hopefully not let the Machinedramon player to finish the game off. And it really depends on what they have right here. So it looks like they're going to push out with the Tapir, but with security attack -1, they can't go for all the checks in total unless if they're able to use attack with the heavy mobile once more, play out another body, maybe de-digivolve, or somehow get rid of the Chimera stack in total. Then they'll be able to pretty much come in and clutch and finish that game. So it looks like they're going to go for the attack. They use the Metal Mame here instead to strip away the blocker source, and that would only actually do 1 check. And they don't have the Megadramon to unsuspend either, so this could be key for Timmy to actually survive. They're going to check with the Tapir, and then they're going to draw a card, and then they can trash a level 5 or higher, which looks like unfortunately they just drew the Chaos Dramon, because if they had it in the prior before the check actually happened, they would easily been able to digivolve into it and then de-digivolve and actually finish the game that way as well by tucking like a ton of sources. So that was probably definitely an unfortunate situation. Now they're going to force themselves to go into a Chaos Dramon X to probably tuck in additional source and then see how they can sort of sustain and stay in the game from there on. But this is the best chance that Timmy will have to actually finish the game potentially in the next turn. The opponent's only just down to 0 security, so there has to be a way. Going into Metal Tyrannomon, which is going to de-digivolve and delete the Kunemon, which is actually going to give the sources back for Timmy to go into Kimeramon all over again. if he needs to. He gets to float something back, and with Gurumon being able to strip away the Andromon source, now this is one less block or redirect that he needs to worry about, because now he's only left with 2 analog mans on the side from the BT11 to stop these attacks in total, so Timmy can actually find a way to actually finish it off. So I guess either he can Digivolve up into Skullgray and then go into Blitzgray just to D-Digi, and then that way it's no longer a level 6 machine, so then he can just swing for Yame and that would just finish it off. Or he's actually going to go for Skullgray as an attack. Of course, the opponent has to redirect it, so it gets deleted, and then now he gets to recover one off the Angemon's Inherit effect, and then play out a Garurumon, a second one, tuck a source underneath to strip away Machinedramon, which prevents Chaosdramon X from having the protection anymore. But even so, Machinedramon no longer has enough redirects to stop the following attacks, so Kimeramon got it this time. Next game, gonna up the challenge and try to face off against one of the top meta contenders of this format, which is kind of like Megidramon, but not exactly Megidramon, more like Growl-Gill Rush, which plays with the Gallantmon top end and no really like Megidra at all. You guys will find out in just a bit. The opponent starts out first, Timmy's going second, so now he has quite a good handful of cards that he can work with, and he can Digivolve into Greymon and start training and start adding sources underneath, and now having a early Foul Island can help him sort of stabilize in the later stages of the game to maybe potentially count against the opponent, but also gain additional DP buff all turns, which can be helpful, but maybe not so necessary in this matchup, just because most of the DPs in the opponent's security or in general are not super high, but we'll see how that goes. So it looks like the opponent is going to continue the cycle and Digivolve into their Gil X, Search, Growl, Mill 2, Growl X, you know the typical, just attack with it, and then basically try to bring out as many Gilmons as possible, but they're ending with the War Growl from EX9 instead, and this one's going to play out a Gilmon out, which is going to have a lot of heavy aggro, and this can be very challenging with Kimeramon, because when it comes to Kimeramon deck, it does have a rather bit of a slower start. It's kind of difficult to ramp up to having 7 different names in your sources of your trash, and getting there against some heavy aggro decks like these is definitely going to be a very uphill battle. So he's going to go into Skullgray and try to do as much as he can and try to mill as much as he can as well at the same time, and continue his normal game plan generally, and then pass the opponent to as little memory to work with as possible. But for now, there are no level 4s in the trash that he can utilize just yet, and then the opponent is just going to continue to combo off by going into another Gale X, another Growl, and then Growl X once again, and having all that flowing capability. They can do a ton of checks out of nowhere in one go. So gonna swing and attack. There isn't really much counterability that the Kimeramon deck can do at the moment, as they're just tanking damage as they go, but their security is depleting very quickly, alongside with the Growlmon Inherited effect from EX3 that can delete something else on the side to gain security attack +1, and then now they get to flow another Gilmon after crashing, which is pretty insane. And furthermore, the Gilmon has Rush because they cycle through the trash so quickly with Kimeramon as well at the same time. That game plan is to add cards into the trash, which helps them outreach those numbers way quicker. Now going into another second War Growl, playing another Gil with Foul Island. Sure, they can play out the Kuwagamon to suspend down that Rush Gil to prevent it from making a last attack, but unfortunately, Demonic Disaster comes in, and man, that deck is just way too fast. Unfortunately, we'll get them next time. This game facing off against a Battlemon, where Timmy is going to be going first. Keeping the hand looks pretty good. There's a rookie with training to work with, and then there's Analog Youth or File Island. Something to put the opponent back to 3 or 2 memory is great here to set up cards and start ramping up. The thing is with a Battlemon here and a Battle Core, being able to go first is quite a bit of advantage, just because the opponent's deck generally wants to go first as well, being able to hatch their egg as quickly and ramp up into their battle. Now, sometimes the deck can go a little slow, so there's enough time for Kimeramon to actually rack up enough sources to actually start doing something. And it's quite a back and forth matchup overall as well, which is kind of fun. So here, he's going to start off with a Kabuterimon with 3 sources underneath it and start stunning the board a little bit. The opponent doesn't really have the intention to actually chip away at the opponent's opponent's security or attack just quite yet, aside from utilizing Eismon collision. But now being able to go into the Raremon already to de-digivolve the Kune is going to have quite a lot of sources because of Analog Youth. And this is great cyclability for Timmy at the moment, because he's adding more and more and more. And eventually, if it does get deleted, he's going to have access to a whole sea of level 4s very, very quickly. So he's taking it slow a little bit, setting up again. He needs to just take his time. He doesn't really need to necessarily start pushing and attacking too aggressively either, just because the opponent has multiple redirects on the board with their Digi-Egg already, so it's not really that valuable for you to just lose your sources. The opponent attacks with Eismon. He was considering trying to delete with Kune, but this is actually not necessary either, because he can actually take advantage of those face-down sources, so he blocks with Gabu instead. And now this actually gives him the perfect opportunity to try and go into a level 4 and also try to go into Skullgrey. He's going to gain a lot of memory with the Analog Youth and draw a bunch of cards, which is going to be fantastic. There's meat for him to work with if he wants to as well. So I can see that he wants to probably just Digivolve into Angemon, tuck additional source, and then he can easily go into Skullgrey. And you guys, this is going to be the juicy part right here, along with Sunamon Egg, because it is version 2, going to Skullgrey for reduced cost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? That is just milling 7 cards on the top of the deck, or even more, I suppose. And that allows him to grab the Kimeramon back and set up a ton of cards in trash. Now, some of the mills are not really ideal, but that's okay, because now he's going to attack with the Skullgrey. The opponent's going to let it through, because the reasoning is that if they redirect and delete the Skullgrey is going to have access to the sources. But checking into the Edimon, which is also 7k anyways, now gave him a ton of level 4s to work with, which is insane value with that power move right there. And it really puts him in a good position, because he has to start answering the opponent as soon as he can. Has to start pressuring with damage as well, because the opponent is already gone through their last and final Abato Egg, ready to go in the raising as well. So now he's going to assemble as soon as he can to go into Chimera, and he has all the different colors that he can work with already. He can tuck more sources, and he can do a whole bunch of crazy things with it. So he won't be able to attack just this turn yet, but he's at least able to pass the turn and have the Chimera standing on the board, and then potentially next turn start attacking with it as much as he can. And he has like a level 3 to work with in raising, and plus a Ogremon thanks to skullgreymon's floating ability, which is really, really nice right here. So now they go into the last scattered mode, and this would normally be the turn that the Abatomon would come out, either on top of the Raremon, or whether they hard play it with assembly, but they don't have the assembly sources in the trash just yet. That means they're missing a certain piece. They might be missing both Abato and Abato Core, which is actually crucial. Now having that delayed turn, this is where the opportunity that Kimeramon can really take advantage of and try to find a way to carefully navigate here and actually try to start pushing to go for game-winning plays. Even if the opponent starts redirecting attacks, it doesn't matter too much. You want to start pressuring and start attacking before Abato comes out, or especially once Abato Core is set. So Timmy is going to take advantage of that and start trying to attack with the Chimera, suspending things down, but they do have redirect, but they come down with a Shadow Seraphi Ace, which is going to de-digivolve the Chimera away and get rid of the entire stack, but the inheritables are still going to be live right there, which is going to be really helpful, because then he can still float a level 4 back from the trash, and then goes for a Garuru to strip away certain sources, which ideally you want to strip away the Digi-Egg so that they can't redirect anymore, but he's not going to go for that play at all. He's just going to go hard slap another Chimera by assembling with 7 different names once again. And now, because he has all the different colors, 6 different colors underneath it, he can pop multiple colors across the opponent's side of the board, taking out that Shadow Seraphi, gaining Ace Overflow, and now pressure for even more attacks. Attack with Ogre, popping the other scatter mode on the side, and go for 2 checks. The Guru can't attack just yet, but the BO can right here, putting the opponent down to 0 security and setting up a potential lethal play with his security untouched, and having a Protein and Foul Island set up as well, where he is in a fantastic position to actually go for the game-winning play in the following turn. The opponent almost has nothing to answer. They have a Scramble, which seems like they have to consider adding the Abato back to the top of their deck, and now they have access to the 4 Digi-Eggs in their trash. They would probably go for an assembly play to set up the Abato Core in the raising instead. So it looks like they're going to go ahead and do that exactly, but this is probably still too late. The AVAULT core does have a lot of disruption because there's going to be 4 redirects right there already prior to the actual attack. AVAULT core can push out when Timmy decides to attack as well, so he can easily try to find a way to navigate around this, but it looks like he's going to go for analog use as always first as much as possible. Attack with the Guru and strip away 3 sources. And this is where the opponent will have to either choose to push out or redirect. Looks like they're going to go for redirect, and Guru being deleted, that's totally fine, doesn't matter to him here. But this is also a dangerous spot because now he's left with 2 level 5s only, and he actually would have needed to keep the rookie on there so that when he attacks with the Kimeramon and AVAULT core pushes out, it would have deleted the Kunemon instead of deleting both these level 5s where he wouldn't be able to finish the game off. Now, with AVAULT core deleting that, he still gets to play 2 things back out with the skullgreymon on the board and the inheritable on the other side. So he's going to go for Kabuteri, which is going to suspend down the AVAULT core so he no longer block. And then now he can assemble to a new Chimera again. So either way, he's got the solution around this so they can rush and finish the game off just like that by tucking the sources underneath. Once again, gathering all 6 different colors, deleting it, and winning the game. The Mega Machine Playmat and Sleeves are live on the AVAULT store, so make sure to grab yours right now. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have a great day, great night, whatever you are. See you in the next video, and this is AVAULT signing